Hello again, Year 6, and welcome back to our second Year 6 English lesson this week. Before we begin, you will need a pencil or a pen, your home learning book, or a piece of paper to write on, and you may also want to have your copy of Cloudbusting to help you with your writing. If you don't have these things, please pause the video now and come back when you have everything you need. All right, let's go. Remember, your writing task this week is to write a short retell of our class text, Cloudbusting. You will need to choose the most important parts of the story and decide how to engage your reader in your retell. Each day, you will build up ideas ready to do an extended writing piece on Thursday. Let's read through my model text today. While I read, think about what feature I've highlighted in red. And if you're up for a challenge, think about what is the purpose of this feature. Listen while I read. One evening, a few weeks after Dave had started at school, Sam's mom interrupted his video games to beckon him to the kitchen. "Sam, I told Miss Youngston that you'd walk with her son to school tomorrow," Sam's mom nonchalantly told him. Horrified, Sam replied, "Miss Youngston? Dave's mom?" "Yes. Is that a problem?" Sam's mom retorted sharply. Sam could tell she had made up her mind, and there was no escape. "Nope, no problem," Sam answered, and turned away from his mother. A devious smile spread across his face. If he had to be seen with this dork, someone had to pay. Davy had to pay. What feature have I highlighted in red, Year 6? If you said direct speech, or inverted commas, or punctuation for direct speech, you are correct. Our learning objective today is to use direct speech to move a narrative forward. Please pause the video here and write down your learning objective for today. All right, let's continue. Direct speech is used to show the exact words someone has said. My turn. Direct speech is used to show the exact words someone has said. Great job. My turn again. Direct speech is used to show the exact words someone has said. Your turn. Great work. Let's look at this example. Horrified, Sam replied, "Mrs. Youngston, Dave's mom?" Remember, direct speech is used to show the exact words someone has said. What was said? Mrs. Youngston, Dave's mom? Who said it? Well, Sam said it, of course. Well done. Remember that direct speech uses inverted commas, which are sometimes called speech marks. I will use both terms today. If I say inverted commas, I mean speech marks. And if I say speech marks, I mean inverted commas. They're the same. Before we begin to use direct speech in our writing, we need to make sure we understand each part of a sentence with direct speech in it. My turn. A reporting clause. Your turn. My turn. A reporting clause. Good job. Let's read. A reporting clause tells us who said it and how they said it. My example says, horrified, Sam replied, "Mrs. Youngston, Dave's mom?" The reporting clause here, Year 6, is horrified, Sam replied. Remember, a reporting clause tells us who said it, Sam, and sometimes tells us how they said it. Here, he said it in a horrified way. Let's talk about punctuating direct speech. When the reporting clause comes first, we add a comma before the speech marks. We add punctuation to end the sentence before the speech marks. And we use speech marks around what is said. Please notice the letter in purple, that M after the speech marks. We need a capital letter here to begin the direct speech. Let's read the sentence together with the punctuation marks. My turn. Horrified, comma, Sam replied, comma, inverted commas. Mrs. Youngston? Dave's mom? Question mark, inverted commas. Your turn. Great job. Remember, this is how we punctuate speech, if the reporting clause comes first. Now let's look at what we do if the reporting clause comes after the direct speech. Please notice that we still use a capital letter to begin the direct speech. However, we do not need a capital letter after the inverted commas at the end because the sentence is continuing. When the reporting clause comes after, we use punctuation before the end of the speech marks. Yes, is that a problem? Question mark. This punctuation is a question mark, an exclamation point, or a comma. It should not be a full stop. We also use speech marks around the exact words which have been said. Now, Year 6. We've been using direct speech in our writing for a number of years now. In Year 6, what we need to do is focus on purpose. That means we need to think about why we are using it. My turn. The purpose of direct speech is to move the story forward. Your turn. My turn. The purpose of direct speech is to move the story forward. Your turn. Great work. Move the story forward. Miss, what do you mean? Well, you're in luck. I'll tell you. When I say the purpose is to move the story forward, I mean that your direct speech needs to have a purpose. It needs to be useful to your story. There needs to be a reason that you, the author, have decided to use it. Perhaps it sets the scene or creates cohesion for what comes next. It may also give your reader more information about a character or about a situation. Let's see if we understand. Sam, I told Miss Youngston that you'd walk with her son to school tomorrow. Sam's mom nonchalantly told him. What is the purpose of this piece of direct speech? Is it to set the scene for what comes next? Or is it to give the reader more information about a character? Pause the video here and have a think. When you're ready, play the video. If you said that the purpose of this direct speech is to set the scene, you are correct. Remember, what happens next in our story is that Sam and Davy are walking to school. And Davy pushes Sam in front of the car, doesn't he? This piece of direct speech is helping the reader to understand that this will come next, that tomorrow Sam and Dave will be walking together. And this is why, because Sam's mom told him to. It helps us get ready for and understand the scene. Sam and Davy walking to school. Let's look at this example. What is the purpose of this piece of direct speech? Horrified, Sam replied, "Mrs. Youngston? Dave's mom?" Is the purpose here to set the scene and create cohesion for what comes next? Or is it to give the reader more information about a character? Pause the video here and have a think. Play the video when you're ready. If you said this piece of direct speech gives the reader more information, you are correct. This direct speech helps the reader understand and learn about how Sam feels about walking to school with Davy. It makes the reader think about what might happen when they walk to school together. Which of these correctly uses punctuation for direct speech? And how do you know? Pause the video here and decide which you think is correct. And perhaps, if one is wrong, how do you know it's wrong? Well done. I hope you said that number 1 is incorrect and number 2 is correct. Number 1 is incorrect because the exclamation point is outside of the speech marks. Remember, that punctuation to end the speech should be inside the speech marks. Number 2 is correct. Let's read it together with the punctuation. Sam answered back quickly, comma, speech marks. Ew, I'd never hang out with that dork, comma, Davy, exclamation point, speech marks. Your turn. Great work. Let's practice one more time. This time, I'm combining the punctuation and the purpose. Which of these correctly uses punctuation for direct speech and has a purpose, moves that story forward? Pause the video here and decide which you think is correct. Great job! If you said number 1 is incorrect and number 2 is correct, well done. Number 1 is incorrect because it doesn't really have a purpose. While the direct speech is punctuated correctly, it doesn't really relate to the story. It doesn't tell the reader something about a character, or something important about a character, I should say. I suppose it tells us that Sam likes spaghetti, but does that really matter? I don't suppose so. It also doesn't help us understand what will come next. However, the second example does. It says, Sam looked at Davy and pondered. I actually think you're pretty cool. Take a moment here and decide, what does that second example tell us about Sam? Well done. It tells us that Sam is starting to like Davy, and this is a key point. That is a very important part of the story, isn't it, Year 6? Great work. Let's remember that direct speech must be punctuated using, my turn, inverted commas. Your turn. Great job. And it must, my turn, move the story forward. Your turn. Move the story forward. Great job. Let's remember, we have punctuation before the end of the speech marks, and we have speech marks around exactly what is said. As a reminder, Year 6, today's learning objective is to use direct speech, which means correctly punctuating, and to use it to move your narrative forward. Let's explore how we can use direct speech correctly and purposefully in our writing. I will read both to you. Your job is to decide which is more engaging for the reader and why. Number 1. The next day, Sam unenthusiastically knocked on Dave's door. Dave opened the door and said, "Hey, let's go to school." "Okay," Sam murmured back, and the boys set off to school. Number 2. As they walked, Davy looked up at Sam hopefully. "Hey, what's your favorite subject at school?" I don't know. Science, I guess," Sam answered half-heartedly. "How about your favorite sport?" Davy questioned optimistically. "Football," he curtly responded. Pause the video here and think about which example is more engaging for the reader and why. Great work. If you said that number 2 is more engaging for the reader, you are correct. Number 2 is more engaging because it tells us more about each character. It shows us that Davy is hopeful and optimistic about his walk with Sam. It also shows that Sam is uninterested and a bit rude to Davy. Let's take a look at a few of my examples. I want you to find and correct the errors in how this direct speech is punctuated. Pause the video here and make these corrections. Start the video again when you're ready to mark your work. All right, let's go. Let's start with number 1. I'm sure you all saw that we're missing a question mark. Remember, we need that punctuation inside the inverted commas. Everything else in number 1 is correct. Let's look at number 2. Without even thinking about it, he responded, "I heard Davy's allergic to peanuts." What's missing here? We're missing a comma after the reported clause, but before the speech marks, as well as a full stop at the end of the direct speech. Now, number 3 was a bit more tricky. Let's see if you could figure it out. "Don't tell anyone," Davy whispered to Sam. "I'm allergic to peanuts." Here, the full stop after Sam should have been a comma, because this reported clause is after, but is also before. It's straight in the middle, isn't it? So the reported clause is introducing the second direct speech. Therefore, we need a comma before our second set of speech marks. Well done if you saw that. Now Year 6. I need some help. I think I've made some errors. Could you please help me improve my writing? Look through to make sure I've included correctly punctuated direct speech, which moves the narrative forward. I'll read to you. Then you'll pause the video and make some edits. As the boys walked to school, they were quiet for a long time. Sam picked up his cell phone and dialed. "Hey, Alex," he said. "Want to play football when we get to school?" Davy couldn't hear the reply, but it must have been affirmative because Sam said, "Okay, cool. See you then." The boys continued to walk silently for a while, until Davy looked up at Sam hopefully and asked, "Hey, what's your favorite subject at school?" I don't know. Science, I guess," Sam answered, half-heartedly. "How about your favorite sport?" Davy questioned optimistically. "Football," Sam curtly responded. "All right, year 6, I want you to be looking for my punctuation. Is my direct speech punctuated correctly? And I also want you to be thinking, does my direct speech move the narrative forward? Does it tell me more about a character or get me ready for something that will happen next? Pause the video here and come back when you're ready to mark your work." All right, let's see. The first thing that I hope you noticed, year 6, is that this entire paragraph, though punctuation is correct, it has no purpose. It doesn't set the scene for the reader, and it doesn't help the reader learn about a character. This direct speech is useless. It can be removed. Now let's look at the rest of the piece of writing. The first thing is I'm missing a comma before my direct speech. My second error is I missed out a speech mark when Sam was speaking. Thirdly, this H in how should be a capital. Remember, I'm beginning a sentence, so I need a capital letter. Always use a capital letter at the beginning of direct speech. And finally, I'm missing a comma after football. Remember that we don't use a full stop inside speech marks. We can use a question mark, an exclamation mark, or a comma, but we should not use a full stop. Great job! Here is a story mountain. Yesterday, we wrote the opening of our story, Cloud Busting. We described the setting, and we introduced the characters. Today, we will write the build-up of the story, as well as the climax. Pause the video here and jot down a few notes about major parts of the story you might include today. Well done. Now it's your turn to get writing. Your writing task today is to write the build-up and the climax, which is when Davy is given the peanut, of our story Cloud Busting. You want to build tension, so your reader wants to keep reading. You might want to include when Sam has to walk to school with Davy, when Sam and Davy become secret friends, when Davy hears Sam talking rudely about him, or maybe even when Sam tells Davy's secret to Alex. You should also begin to write the climax today. This is when Alex gives Davy the peanut. Once you get to this part, you can stop. Don't forget to use direct speech to move your story forward. If you need a bit more support, use this page to help you remember how to punctuate your direct speech. I'll leave you here with my model text in case you want to magpie any great ideas. I can't wait to read your writing. Well done today, Year 6, and we'll see you again tomorrow.